on my travels, at least over the last 10 years or so, and many students were already working in what we'd call a virtual school. So there's no physical building. You would log in online and meet a real person.
It might decrease social skills, which worries me.
Whether we have all physical teaching or all virtual teaching, or maybe a little mixture, that's where it gets a bit complicated.
Welcome to Lessons for Life. I'm Gabby.
I'm Marnie.
And today we're interviewing
Ross
from TeacherToolkit. Ross, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I am very well, and I'm very happy to be talking with you both.
Can you tell us what your job is and what the focus of your work is?
Yes, so I work in schools all over the world. My focus is to help teachers work better, and more importantly, to inspire minds like yourselves to make you love being at school and to find a career that you want to do for the rest of your life.
Ross, what would you like to achieve through your work?
Well, that's a good question. I'd love to help teachers be happier in the classroom, to be more productive, to love what they do, to generate the next generation of students like yourselves who want to go off, maybe to become a teacher, you never know, but to find things that they love in life so they can develop a career and grow up into a nice young human being so they can help other people in society.
That's really interesting.
We're interviewing you as part of the Lessons for Life campaign. Why do you think the Lessons for Life campaign is important?
It's important because in our schools, we try to fit lots and lots of things into what we call the curriculum. And what we're trying to do is highlight some of the things that we might not make as important as others. And I think personal development, teaching you how to contribute to society, thinking about money and how you manage lots of different things in your life, is trying to make these things a little bit more important in the curriculum in schools so that teachers spend a bit more time helping you navigate some of these issues.
What problems in society do you think education can fix?
I think in today's landscape, I'm not sure if have you both heard of artificial intelligence?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll know that on our computers and on our phones now, we can get robots create information for us. And the challenge is that sometimes some of that information might be wrong. So let's say you're searching the internet and it's telling you some answers to, I don't know, let's say the planets in the solar system, and it gives you the wrong answers maybe. Then in our schools, we don't want robots perhaps to give you the wrong information. So currently, as this technology is available, we're trying to ensure that it's safe to use, but also we teach you how to use it accurately. That's just maybe one example of lots of important things we need to teach you in school.
Speaking of artificial intelligence, one day do you think we'll have virtual teachers?
Yes, in fact, we already have them now. I think of some students and schools that I visit on my travels, at least over the last 10 years or so, and many students were already working in what we'd call a virtual school. So there's no physical building. You would log in online and meet a real person. Now, obviously, the pandemic came, and then there's ChatGPT, which is that artificial intelligence that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years. And the world's changed significantly in the last 4 years, where, in my perspective, working with lots of schools, before the pandemic, I couldn't meet them like we are meeting now and virtually because schools wouldn't use webinar technology. But if you think back to the pandemic, you were logging into lessons on Zoom or Teams, weren't you, watching your teachers, but at least they were real. So now today with artificial intelligence, in fact, only last week, girls, I created a robot version of me to experiment with me maybe doing a training session online or just sharing a short thing that I was reading and seeing how the robot that looked like me would speak it out aloud. And it's exciting, but it's also worrying. What do you think?
It might decrease social skills, which worries me.
That's a very good point. So we all love meeting people. And, it's been very difficult for us to arrange to meet physically. So we're doing this socially. But if you saw me in real life, you wouldn't believe how tall I am. as an example. So you start to see why social skills is really important and meeting people is really important. So I always believe that as teachers, we need schools where we can bring people like you together in classrooms to meet friends and develop lots of social skills. And you get to meet teachers and hear them face to face. But the challenge is in the future, as more and more technology increases, there will be, let's say, I'm sure you've got one or two friends, sometimes they don't like school, or maybe they're ill and they're in hospital for a long time. Well, that's where the technology can help. So they can still access their education, but they might do it remotely. Whether we have all physical teaching or all virtual teaching, or maybe a little mixture, that's where it gets a bit complicated.
We're now at the back to school segment. So tell me, what was your experience like with PSHE or life skills lessons when you were in school?
I went to 7 different schools as a child. And I think what I remember most about my time in school was trying to make new friendships all the time because I was always in a new school. So if you go to school until the year 11, I went to 7 different schools in that time. The only thing I remember was a little bit about money and a little bit about sex education when we learn, our body parts and how we might develop families and things like that, but not too much detail, sadly.
I love PSHE, but we're now going to test your knowledge.
Oh gosh, a test.
The topic for today is relationships. Question number 1. If a pupil was struggling with relationships at school, who could they talk to?
It could be their friends, but I would recommend their teacher or a senior teacher in the school, maybe the head teacher if it was very serious, but always go to your teacher.
Question number 2. If a pupil was struggling with schoolwork, who could they talk to?
So my top tip would be people in the school, such as the librarian, if you have one, that you need to do a bit of homework, or your classroom teacher. And if you can grab your head teacher who's very busy, I'm sure they will be happy to give you some help.
And the last question is, how can pupils welcome someone new into their classroom?
I would recommend if the teacher knows that the student's arriving before they meet the class, which should be always the case, I'd always let all the classmates know that somebody's new to arrive, maybe tell them what their name is, any interesting facts, things like that. I'd also recommend having a buddy. I'm sure in your classrooms you've heard that phrase before where you assign a buddy, someone to look after them for the day or for the first week, show them where the lunch hall is, those kind of things.
You did really well on your test, Ross. But I have another question for you. How can schools create a safe environment for children to feel happy to discuss their mental health and well-being?
The first one would be that the school creates a culture. I don't know if you're familiar with what that word means, but it would be, celebrating positive relationships, all types of relationships, diversity, creating safe spaces for pupils to relax. So where you might have a comfortable place to sit at break time, clean toilets, those kind of things. Classrooms might be, you might get I don't think I've ever seen a dirty classroom, but imagine if you went to school and it was really smelly. So we need to have calm places. I don't know if your school has a forest school. You've got your own woodlands or forest attached to your school. So imagine going there and being able to see animals and grow vegetables. So those kind of things are what we'd call, a nice physical kind of environmental space to help students relax. And inside you might have lots of spaces or swings and places to play, lots of colour. And all these things are going to contribute to having a good mental health. And this helps ensure that we get a great school environment for you to develop a positive mindset and have good mental health.
Ross, your next question is, what has been your biggest life lesson to date?
So I'm now 51 years old, and it probably took me until my early 40s, so when I was about 40 years old, to be able to talk to my mum about a very big issue that happened in my life where I could talk confidently. So it reminded me of being able to trust your family and talk to them about anything. even some very difficult or not very nice things. And I guess with also that, thinking about all my friends that I had in my life, and sometimes you lose touch with some friends, sometimes your friends can let you down. But the older and wiser I get, the more I realize that your friends in your life are very important, and you need to learn how to respect them, to trust them, to do things for them when you least expect or want to sometimes. Because sometimes in your life you're going to need your friends to look out for you. So the older I get, the more I realize that my family and my friends are probably the most important things in my life. And with social media, I'm sure you've heard of social media and you've seen things online, and you can get all these likes and retweets and things like that, and you think you're very popular. But it's important to remember that away from all this technology, having those social skills again, talking to people face to face, and having a good group of friends that you can always rely on, as well as your family, is probably the most important thing in my life, and I would say for most people.
Ross, what advice would you give someone if they're struggling to reach out?
Well, always my go-to advice would be to talk to your teachers in your school. They'll always listen to you. They'll always give you some advice. And what I've learned over the years is if you're feeling in a particular way, or if you've got an issue, it's very likely that someone else feels the same as you and can help you how to help fix that problem. I guess my number one tip, other than talking to your teachers, is if you're going online, rather than just go to any source, maybe go to a reliable source. I would recommend Childline, where you can get some advice about how you're feeling. Connect with people online for some advice. There's some resources that you can look at, videos, those kind of things. So that'd be my top tip.
That was great information for our listeners. If you could change one thing about education, what would it be?
Oh, I have a massive list of things that I'd like to change in education, but I'm going to give you something. There's a good reason for this one, something that teachers will like and students, but our parents and families might not like this idea, and that would be a 4-day week at school with 3 days off. Why? Because it would improve people's well-being, we'd get more teachers working in our schools, and we could promote a healthier lifestyle rather than always being in school. Now, there's lots of things we'd have to work out for this one, but I don't know whether we're ready for it here in England, but there are some other countries already doing that.
If you could teach children one thing before they leave primary school, what would it be?
I think primary teachers do a brilliant job already. In fact, they teach you how to read and write, which I think is probably the best thing that a teacher can do. Wouldn't it be great if every child that left primary school could read and write, because not everyone can. And maybe we all knew how to speak another language would also be good fluently. Imagine next time you go to France or Spain, you could speak the language. And if I can squeeze one more in, it would be the technology again, because as you've got all this artificial intelligence online and social media, knowing how to trust the information online would be really important. But I think our schools do some of these things well already.
Ross, speaking about technology, do you think we'll need to write that much in the future?
Oh, well, if I think when I was at school, I used to always have to handwrite everything. And then when I arrived as a teacher in school, I had a keyboard in front of me, then had to start typing things. And then in the last 10 years, I've started to speak into my computer and it writes for me. So although I'm not handwriting as much as I used to, I believe I can still do all three types. I can handwrite, type, or speak. And I think in the future there might be something new coming which we can't yet describe, but I think it's important that I can still do all 3 or 4 variations. So I think human beings will always need to write.
Before we finish our interview, is there anything else you would like to share to our listeners today?
Well, I would recommend people check out lessonsforlife.org, the website, and sign up for the campaign, see what it's all about. And if anyone's looking for some help, on teachertoolkit.co.uk for some resources, some blogs and ideas to help teachers, and lots of resources that will help people like you in our classrooms, then you can go to my site, teachertoolkit.co.uk.
I heard that Teacher Toolkit offers a membership for teachers. Can you tell us more?
Yes. So once a month, I develop and research a detailed resource that teachers can use in their classroom, but also to develop their teaching expertise to become even better. So the word toolkit is essentially me giving them lots of different resources to develop into an expert teacher. So I think the last time I checked, there's about 5,000 teachers using it and saying that they really enjoyed it.
That sounds really helpful for teachers. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure, girls. I've had a brilliant time. It's definitely, without question, the highlight of my day.
To find out more, visit lettersforlife.org.